Hi, as already introduced, my name is AJay Mathur and I work at design systems team at Atlassian. I've been working with design systems for over a year now, and so I'll be talking about my experience with design systems are in general and how we can use it. And that's my Twitter handle, AJay Mathur. I mostly retweet the tweets related to JavaScript if you're interested, and my DM's open if you've got any questions related to design systems, so feel free to reach me. So before starting with what a design system is and how to use it and things, first I would like to know from the audience how many of us use design system, are working for design system, or know what design system is. That's cool. Cool. So just to give a bit of background on design systems, like at the moment a lot of companies around the world already have design system. They have their own approach to design system. It mainly requires like a component library, design guides, and few more other things coming up with us. And as you have many design systems, we can find many multiple definitions online, and this is one definition which is really close to my heart. Like, this is how our design system or any design system could be represented. So it says design systems are a collection of rules, constraints, principles implemented in design and code. And if we look closely at this definition, there are three words that stand out, which is rules, constraints, and principles. So just to see what the rules are, if you imagine, rules are something which can be broken, but we are supposed to follow them. So those are rules. Second is constraints. Constraints are something which you cannot go against. So those are kind of, think of an hard-coded constant in your code which you can never change. So those are the constraints which come in. And principles are kind of concepts around the component or anything that you build, how it is supposed to be used. For example, if we design a brand color green, how is that green supposed to be used, where it's supposed to be used? Is this green success? And there's another green which shows like there's a next step which you can go through. So these are principles around components, and which are the part of design system. So to see how design system works and how that definition actually fits into a design system, let's take an example. So I'll take an example from our design system. So we have built one component. So as you saw, whenever user interacts with the page, and if there's any action we want to show, we want to draw their attention for something, we show a flag which pops up from the bottom left corner of the screen, and it just pops up, and that's what the flag is. Now once we have built a flag component as part of the design system, and when we present it to the user, it needs to go with the rule, constraint, and principle. So if you just take the example of this particular component, there are rules with this component. So the first rule is flag content should be above all the other page content. So you can imagine, you can easily break this. You can add a div which is fixed and z index higher than flag content, and boom, it's our flag. But you are not supposed to break that. So if you use flag, we have given sub index, z index, don't use anything above that. And we have, like with our components, we have stacked everything properly. So if you don't intentionally break this rule, it will work fine. So that's the rule which comes in. And second is the constraint. Constraint is something which you can't break at all. So if you imagine, we have multiple flags. One of those is auto dismissal flag, which shows for some time and then goes away, which may not need user interaction to go and click on it. So those, as per our design system and as per our research, those should stay on the screen for 8 seconds. So we have actually hard coded that value in the component itself, and none of our consumers can change it. So that is one of the constraints which comes with the component. The third is the principle. So as we spoke about, principle defines how and where to actually use a particular thing which is given by design system. So in this case of flags, it is these are the use for alerts which require minimum user interaction. And if it's something which needs user attention and which needs user to interact, fill a form or something, probably model dialogues are better option, and that's there in the documentation explaining when and how to use flags and when not to use flags. So that comes under constraints. So these are the three things which actually build up the whole design system. And how do we actually communicate these things to design customers? So as a design system team, we have built this. We need to also educate the consumers how to use those and why, what are rules, what are constraints and what are principles. So how do we educate, and to understand how do we do that and some of the things which comes with design system, I would like to compare it with style guides, because I feel style guides are more natural, and those are the first things that we build when we want to give consistency in UI, you know. So if you think of the style guides, they are mainly focused on presentation, how a page should look and feel, how to actually place the buttons, how the button should look and feel. So style guide offers us brand colors, logos, icons and typography for a particular brand and how to build a product using those. But when it comes to design system is not just with the presentation, it's supposed to be serving the whole ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, it serves everything, how your application should look, how your application should feel when consumer uses it, and also how your application should talk to the consumers. So it comes with 3 components, which is voice and tone, components, and design guides and assets. So I'll be talking about those in detail. So voice and tone. Voice and tone gives a persona to the product or any application which you are building. Just to give an example, if everybody has a unique way of talking to another person, and you can easily identify even by hearing them. So this is how we want to build our products. Everything in the product, like if there are multiple pages in the application, all should talk in the same tone to the customer, so they can build a brand language with the customers, like how this product is interacting with me. Okay, so everything, like all the language and everything is decided by voice and tone, what persona you want your product to be and how it should speak with the customers. Second, components. And components are easily like the UI components which we build, the React components, we bring in the functionality and design together, and you actually use them, you get them out of the box kind of thing. So those are the components given out. Second, thirdly, it's design guides. So design guides are really important. It helps with the guidance how to follow the best UI standards for that particular brand to achieve UI consistency in that product, and also if you own multiple products across all the products. So that's what design guide provides, and all of these 3 come together with design systems. So these are some of the concepts which design system comes up, and there are few services and few things which design systems needs to provide. So some of the things are, the first one we discussed, design guides. Actually the overall thing which comes out from it is design guidelines, and design guidelines actually consist of voice and tone, typography, all our motion, how the application should, like animation should move, what should be the motion of the application, and also design guides. So this comes as the design guidelines. Second comes the design tooling. Design tooling is another important aspect. So these are the GUI packs, which is like sketch libraries, or if there's any other tool we are using. So these are the other libraries which we publish to other designers and product designers who can actually use those and build product designs as per design system. Third one is component libraries, and which is what most of us would be working on. So these are the UI component libraries which are built so that our devs can actually consume, and they can get our design language, our design system out of the box, and they can build the products out of it. So I'll be talking a bit about our UI component library, how we have set up and how it represents the design system and everything I talked about. So I work on AtlasKit. AtlasKit is a React component library based on ADG, and ADG is our Atlassian design guidelines. So they all combine together to make the design system, the Atlassian's design system. So how our AtlasKit works. So some of the decisions we have taken with AtlasKit are we have made it open source. So everything we spoke about design systems, like it should have rules, constraints and principles and everything, but there are few aspects which we don't talk, but they are really important when it comes to design systems. One of those is building community. You should be as close, like one of the great things is the people who are consuming are you. Like I build the UI component library and the consumers are dev, we can speak the same language. So you should always try and build a more involved community. We have gone open source, but yeah, I mean, being open is one of the things. Second is we distribute our components via NPM. So this has really enabled us to version each component individually. For this, imagine we have a button and a flag, for example. We can upgrade button, we can fix the bugs or improve, ship improvements in the button without worrying about the flags. So we can ship flags and version with the different versions, and customers can upgrade them individually. The third is we have set up a monorepo. So how many of us are across what monorepos are and should work with that? Cool. So just for a quick introduction, what monorepos are. Currently imagine if what we do, we have to build a project button on, for example, a flag, we create a separate 2 projects. But when we need to share the components and we need to involve new devs from the community, they actually need to clone both those projects. They need to work on those raise separate PRs in these 2 projects, and also declaring dependencies on those 2 projects. For example, your flag depends on button, then it becomes really hard. If you are upgrading version of button, then flag might break. So we have achieved we have set up a monorepo where it's a single repository, and we have just, in our case, we have created a folder called packages. Inside packages, we have created all the other repositories, button and everything. So everything lives in a single repository, and if a new dev needs to set up their local dev environment to actually contribute back or even suggest changes or see how it works, they can just clone one repository and one command to install dependencies board, and that's it, they get started. So that's one of the things. And so okay, next slide. These things which we have done previously, what they have, how they have enabled Atlaskit to scale. So we have been able to get 103,000 npm downloads of a single package in a week. That's an average download. So that's the scale we have been able to scale because of choosing monorepo npm and going with individually versioning of the components. And secondly, we make 150 releases a week. So I know it sounds a lot, but actually it's not. We have like 72 designs, 72 packages, 72 components. Now imagine like each component gets only 2 releases in a week. So that's not a lot, but yeah. And we have like a 72 packages design system, and based on those, we also build compound components, which are total 112 in total. So this is the scale of Atlaskit at which we manage design systems. And this is the design system I work on, and this is how I understand the design system. And some of my key takeaways by working on a design system of this scale and Atlaskit is always bake design decisions in your components. Don't theming should be a good part of it, always build theming, but some of the design decisions, how it should look, try not to make the API flexible so that devs actually enjoy using it, but don't make it so flexible that your component can be easily broken and it can go against design system. Secondly, build a community. So we have gone open source. Open source is not the only way of building community. You can actually keep your repository open only in your company or team. In a team, I would say share your repository across teams in your company itself so that you can build community, and that really helps. Like that brings new ideas and everything. The third takeaway is, so from my learnings, I have seen that when we start building a products or any application per se, we have 2 pages which the UI doesn't match, and we have changes where the 2 pages look very different. So that's a chaos, and chaos leads to style guides, which leads to pattern libraries, which in the end leads to design systems. And so I would say do what works best for you, but always keep this design thinking and design systems thinking in your back of your head when building components and products. And yeah, so thank you. Any questions, please? Yes, sure.
I know Atlassian.
Do you need mic?
Thank you. I know Atlas can get its own website where you can, demonstrate, showcasing the amazing UI, and you guys actually have playgrounds, so other developers can, try things out. So I just want to know, do you guys build the whole demonstration kind of website in-house, or you use kind of like different tools? Because, like a popular libraries, for showcasing UI can be like Storybook, something like that. So I just want to get more information, in terms of showcasing.
Sure. So the question is around our website and how it's built. And to answer the question, I'll quickly show you what the Atlas Kit website that I work on looks like. So this is our components library website, Atlas Kit. And if you go into any of the components, for example, let's go to button. So this is the website the question was raised about. So some of the things which we have done on this website is, if you come to our component library, always write your docs in a way so that people can get started as soon as possible. So one of the decisions we have taken is, whatever example we wrote, we show the code here itself. If you want to get started, you can copy this code and that's it. You are up and running with the components. So I'll just come to your answer. I'll just bring everybody on the same. And we have these examples. So we always add a basic example, for example, one with butter options. So you can always open source, copy the code and get started. Now, the question was, have we built this website in-house or we are using a third-party tool? So to answer you that right now, yes, we have built this in-house. And some of the things which we have done in this website is, once again, if you go through any of the, and also this website is open to all. It's an open source project. This website is open to all. Feel free to visit. It's atlaskit.atlassian.com. And if you go to our components, for example, button, so we also add the props documentation, and we don't actually manually document it. We fetch these details from the code. So what consumers do is we just write our code. So again, even this repository is open source, so feel free to visit. So this is what I was talking about, monorepo. If you go to packages, we have all the packages here, and then if you go to core, these are all the design system packages. And then if you go to button, source, and just to show you example of button props, so we have just the types file. It is using Flow. It is using TypeScript actually. Yeah, we were using Flow, now we have moved to TypeScript. So some of the components, and it is using TypeScript. So we have declared types here, and we just add comments and what the prop is and what's the type of it, and we automatically generate the components here, documentation here. So yeah, all of this is in-house, but all of this is open source, and so a lot of components are already available on NPM. We have guides on how to use them if you're interested in using in your project.
Just add on to it. So for example, in Storybook, you can have, Storybook add-on docstring where you can, grab your props and forming documentation on its own. So because the site is in-house, do you guys actually, write your own add-ons to fetch all the props and building the documentation?
So so we use this tool called extract react types, and what it does is it reads your files, it creates the JSON, and it spits out React component for you, which you can choose instantly. Yeah.
As you stated that React Storybook has the extensibility that you can simulate and take the code out. That means you just simulate the variants and then copy the code.
Play around with props. And
yes.
Okay.
Yes. You can simulate it visually. You can simulate it and take a code copy and do it in your application. Similarly, in your application, in this code, I mean, in this Atlassian kit, do you have that add-on that the open source community can contribute, or is that something that only in-house can contribute?
We don't have that actually. So I got your question. If consumers want to actually play around with this and create something new, right? So we have this feature called Code Sandbox, and there's a button there. So if you see any example, for example, let's take many options button, you can just click on sandbox button. It will create a code sandbox for you with that particular version of button, whichever you are on, for which you are looking at the docs, and you can actually play around with it here. And also, if you this is the best way to reproduce a example, like whatever your use case is, and then you can share it. So that's how we achieve it.
So I can see really clearly how, like at Atlassian, you have a bunch of different separate products that have sort of the same look and feel to them, and having sort of this design system with a web UI and like it requires a lot of work, and I understand how it makes sense to do all of that work because you're servicing many different product teams and many different products where you want to have a cohesive sort of look and feel to it and have that cohesive language that you were talking about. Do you have any thoughts or experiences with working on design systems with smaller teams that maybe don't have to distribute this sort of like communicate across disparate teams, across disparate products?
Yeah, that's a pretty cool question. So one of the giveaways with this talk was we have definitely set up design system at a big level, like the number of downloads and the number of releases I talked about. But design system can always, like, all the products, big or small, or any team, big or small, I've seen we all aim to building at reusable code. We always aim at building reusable components, and if we just imagine that's halfway through design systems, that's what we are achieving, so that we can actually achieve the same UI across the products. And with CSS in JS now, we actually build all the JS in the component with all the stylings in component itself. So if you are using that component, you get all the stylings, and the only thing missing is the principle. And a lot of teams actually have that, but it's actually something which spreads mouth to mouth, like they speak and it gets spread around. It's all about documenting it. So I would say yes, design systems, of course, there would be some, whenever you're building a new design system, there would be some hurdles, there would be few questions. Do we actually need something like this? How much effort it's gonna take? But it all depends on the team. A single dev can do it, or multiple teams can do it, based on how much you want to support it. And as I said, always always try your best to build community around your design system. Only then it can exist. So once you have built a community, your products or a single product devs which are actually building it can contribute to it and actually enhance it. So I would say yes. And again, like talking about a company which has single product, I would say Airbnb. Airbnb is just one product which is really cool, but they have a really good design system, and they actually follow it to give a unified experience to the customers. If you go to a direct URL, you would actually, no matter where you land on the Airbnb page, you will get the same experience and the same voice and tone. Your application will talk to in that manner. So yes. Any more questions, please? Cool. Thank you then.